There you are.
Hey Chris, how are you?
Good, good. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. I've never gone live on Instagram before.
I
This
know
is cool.
it's kind of a weird thing. I mean, take some comfort in the fact that just three people are watching right now, so that's good.
Good, good, good.
So good to see you. You're on campus right now?
Yeah, I'm actually in the law review office.
Okay.
Yep,
And
yep, yep.
are your days just crazy or
Typically, yes. Today, Tuesdays are actually a lot better for me, and so today hasn't been too hectic. I had only one class, and I'm just TAing for it, so that wasn't too crazy. Wednesdays and Mondays are my busy day, so today is not too bad.
okay, good. So we have a running joke in the OAE that Tuesday is sort of the lost day of the week. There's really no great redeeming qualities to Tuesdays in and of themselves. But maybe in your case, you have an argument for Tuesdays this semester.
Yeah, I mean the weather's nice today. Tuesdays are usually pretty slow. I like Tuesdays. Thursdays are even better. Thursdays, if I don't go into the office for my externship, then Thursdays are very chill. So, but I mean chill as in like I have a ton of things to do, but I don't have to like be in one specific spot. So not like
Yeah,
chill,
yeah.
I guess.
I
But
hear you.
but less hectic, yeah.
How's I mean we'll get into all this, but how's New York?
It's good. I mean, we're getting into the nice part of the year where it's like not horribly cold, but it's also not like really, really hot either. So the weather lately has been really nice. It's 60s today. I really like New York. I like the new area that I lived in. I moved this year, and so I live in a much more like active neighborhood, and there's a lot more restaurants around. There's a lot more things to do. I live right by Central Park now as well, so it's nice. So yeah, I don't know. I really like New York. I always will rep Miami, and all my friends up here know that I do. But yeah, no, I do really enjoy New York. It's been a nice transition, I would say.
I remember when you were deciding, cold weather came up in some of our conversations. How was your first winter last year?
You know, I it was a lot. I'm not gonna lie. When I went back in January, when I left in December, it wasn't horrible. Like I think the worst it got was like 40s when I left. When I got back, there was a blizzard like the week that I flew in. Like I think that weekend there was a blizzard, and I think it snowed the day that I flew in. So that was a lot. And I think winter in general is just I don't know. It's a depressing time of the year. I'm not gonna lie. It was very gray. It was very cold. People warned me that that's what it would be like, but it just lasted for so long. I felt
Yeah.
like I think it was March and April, and there was still cold days. So people were like, "Oh my God, Miami, you only have two seasons, just hot and like warm." But up north, all it is just hot and then really cold. And so, and so I think that part of the weather whole thing is overrated. But it could have been worse. The winter, honestly, we only had like two snowstorms, and aside from that, it like we had like some flurries and like some really cold days, but it actually wasn't like a horrible winter from what I was told. And
Yeah.
and I kind of agree. I don't think it was awful, and I don't think
Right.
it was anything that was, unbearable, but I can't say I'm looking forward to that time coming around again. So
Yeah. It's an adjustment for sure. I grew up there, but then I came, down here, and a few years later, I went back to New Jersey to go to Rutgers for 1 year, and I do
mm,
remember very, very distinctly the first day that it felt like spring. Um, and that's just it had like a magical quality of like, oh, suddenly like jackets could come off, the sun was out in a different way, and it felt amazing. So that's definitely the silver lining is winters might be rough, but you've got spring to look forward to.
I agree. Spring was really, really nice. I actually did not. I think spring was probably maybe it wasn't my favorite season because fall is really nice, but it was nice to start seeing like the trees coming back to normal. Like there were flowers everywhere, like places where I didn't even think there would be like flowers or anything. And so like everything just turned really, really nice. Like all the parks nearby started looking really nice again. It got warmer, of course. The
Yeah.
sun was out. When daylight savings times changed and the days were longer and everything again, that was really nice. And so that's also one of the things about winter that sucks is like the sun setting at like 5 p.m. or like earlier.
Right.
It's like really hard. But
Yeah.
no, yeah, spring is really nice. It's very rewarding after like 4 months of winter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, listen, let's get into it. You are the first guest on the next step here in season five, which means so for 5 semesters we've been doing this series, and it's a lot of fun for me personally to catch up with some past Hammond and other scholars. Most often it's Hammonds because we have so many Hammond scholars. And in your case, I'm really excited to catch up with you because I was really kind of there from the beginning. I mean, you were always pre-law, at least as far as I can remember. But to watch the whole process play out and to see how far you've come has been a lot of fun. And plus, I just always enjoyed chatting with you, Goddard. So it's nice to catch up with you here today. We do have looks like a couple handfuls of people maybe watching, and this recording will live on the PAE Instagram feed for any students who want to go back and check it out. But let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit about you. Why don't you give those who aren't familiar with you a little bit of background in terms of where you grew up and how you came to attend college at the University of Miami.
Yeah, no, and I'm excited for this too. It's nice to see you, Chris, and catch up as well. So yeah, I was born and raised in Miami, Florida. My mom's Cuban, dad is Trinidadian, so full Caribbean background. Feel very at home in Miami with all the culture there. I went to school in Miami. I went to performing arts, middle school and high school in the area. And yeah, then I applied did the whole college application cycle. I'm first gen, so that was an experience, and there was a lot of flying blind at times, but got through the process. I would say I did okay. And so, obviously it was very exciting to go to UM. I did want to stay in Miami for undergrad. I did apply to some schools out of state, but it was really nice to actually get to go to school in Miami and actually get to experience a different part of Miami. A lot of people, when they hear that I'm from, Miami, they're like, oh my God, you woke up to like beaches every morning and like you had like the glamour of the city all the time. Not quite the case of what my experience was like growing up in Miami. I lived like in West Kendall, which is like a very like rural, like in the western side of Miami. And so I feel like going to UM was actually a very like going away to school experience. I didn't live at home any of the years during undergrad. And so I really got to have like the dorm experience, living in a house experience off campus, all of that. And so I really enjoyed being at UM. And then of course, I think the main thing, and I'm sure we'll get into this, but the Hammond Scholarship is really what made me decide to commit to UM, and then the Hammond weekend and everything, getting those experiences and seeing campus and getting to appreciate all of that was really what said, okay, like UM is definitely where I want to go. And I have no regrets about the decision. I thoroughly enjoyed my time at UM, as you know, Chris. And so, yeah, that's kind of my background and, not my law school.
You remind me, Goddard, you enjoyed your time at UM so much, you actually passed on a pretty exciting opportunity that a lot of students seek out. You got the opportunity, but you didn't take it. Why don't you, I think you know what I'm talking about, so tell me that story.
Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, someone had mentioned that. I was talking to someone about that yesterday because my friend is thinking about going abroad in law school, and I was telling them about my story from undergrad. But yeah, so I was, the Hammond Scholarship, a lot of the Hammonds go abroad because, tuition's covered, et cetera. And so I was going to go abroad my junior year, fall semester. Had everything planned out, applied to the school, knew where I was going, got accepted. I went to even the orientation, like the first like preliminary orientation meeting and everything. Like I was fully already like going, like, I just hadn't like, I guess like gotten my schedule or anything. And then there was a couple reasons, there were some family reasons of why I didn't want to end up going, but then it was also just kind of deciding that I didn't want to lose a semester at UM, and there was a lot of things going into my junior year. I was going to be president of mock trial. I was going to be vice president of Inspire U, involved in student government, other things. And there was a lot of classes I wanted to take still. And so going abroad would have really disrupted, I think, my UM experience. And I think it would have been a great time and it would have been a great experience. But ultimately, I don't think I had the calling for it as intensely as some other people did. I don't think I woke up every morning like, oh my God, I really want to do this. And I didn't have that kind of love for it. And so combined with like the family reasons of why I couldn't go, like it just ended up being a decision. And I remember talking to you, Chris, and saying, hey, like if I don't do this, like how do I make up for that? And you were like, well, when you're your junior fall semester, you have to make it like your strongest semester. And I was really intentional about that. And I think looking back, it really was one of my best semesters at UM. And so that was, I remember the key advice. You're like, don't regret it. And I don't regret it still. So, and one day, maybe in law school I'll study. I won't study abroad in law school. Actually, that's not in the cards for me, unfortunately, here either. Because once again, I'm too involved. And so, but yeah, no, it's there's so much time for all those things. And so, one day I'll do my little Europe trip.
Yeah, I think it's something that we all say quite a bit is that this is really the only time in your life you'll get to do things like that. And in some sense, it's true. You will never have that particular opportunity again. But in all honesty, in your case, Goddard, I give you a lot of credit because you came in and sat in my office. I remember that conversation well when we were in the Ash building. And you said, I feel like I'm doing this because I'm supposed to feel like I want to do this. I don't know that I'm as committed to it as some other people are. And so you really started to question whether it was the best use of your time. And you were
Hmm.
very active on campus and you did enjoy your experience. So I just give you a lot of credit for reflecting enough to get to know what you really wanted to do. So anyway, that was a little segue, but I think still relevant and interesting for students to hear.
Hmm.
I do still recommend study abroad, but for sure, it's
Yeah.
not going to be for everyone. So tell me, you mentioned being a Hammond Scholar, and it was a key reason why you chose UM, but now that you've sort of gone through the full cycle and graduated, what did being a Hammond Scholar mean to you?
It meant a lot to me. I mean, the Hammond Scholarship was the first time, not just in my academic experience, but really just in in my life that I was surrounded by a group of people who looked like me in in an academic setting where everybody was so talented, so accomplished, and I didn't really have that in high school and middle school, and so that was a really profound moment for me when I was at Hammond Weekend, seeing all everybody around me and being like, wow, this is just an amazing group to be a part of. And throughout college, that was really the experience. I mean, there were so many Hammonds who I had class with, I was involved in, extracurriculars with, and, there was just such a strong presence of Hammonds on campus that it was just such a sense of pride to be a part of that group. And I don't think I had felt that in any other aspect of my undergrad experience or prior to undergrad. I just never had that sense of wow, this is something bigger than myself that I could really be proud to be a part of. And the way that the Hammond program was really celebrated throughout my entire 4 years at undergrad, everybody at OAE was always celebrating Hammonds. Everybody was saying, Hammonds in leadership, Hammonds doing this, Hammonds going abroad, Hammonds having this, internship, externship, whatever it was. It was just always such a celebrated group to be a part of, and everybody was really always rooting for each other. Everybody always felt very supportive, and I saw that in the other classes as well. The class below me, the class above me, every class of Hammonds really had that same vibe, and so it was just great to be a part of it. And I just felt so honored to be a part of it, and it felt so special. And I think not only did it feel that way, but that's really how the OAE made us feel. They were very intentional with saying this is something you should be really proud of, and you shouldn't let anybody diminish that accomplishment because it means something and you guys could achieve so much based off of that. And so a lot of the things that I did in undergrad, I mean, my high school didn't necessarily, it prepared me for undergrad, but it didn't necessarily, tell me all these experiences that I would have. And so it was really the Hammond program that pushed me to be okay, I could do this. I could be president of this organization, I could take this class, or I could, pursue this internship. It kind of gave me that underlying motivation from the start to say yeah, you could do those things because look where you got already. And, with all these obstacles you faced in your life, you've got here. And so it meant a lot to me, and it still does. I wear my Hammond shirt around Columbia all the time. But yeah, it meant a lot to me.
Cool. That's all great to hear, and thanks for the kind words to the OAE. So you kind of went through some of your involvements outside the classroom kind of quickly in one of your previous responses. So I'd like to hear more about that, but maybe I'll ask you this question in the context of your ambitions to be a lawyer. So you knew you wanted to go to law school from the beginning.
Mhm.
So, okay, two questions. First, how young were you when you realized, I think I want to be a lawyer? And did you ever second guess that? That's the first question. Two questions in the first part. And then secondly, how did some of your involvements outside the classroom, how did you view those as related to your ambition to go to law school next?
Yeah, so to answer the first question, and this is definitely not the case for I think a lot of the people that I've met here in law school so far, but I really did want to become a lawyer from as long as I remember. I remember my parents, even when I was younger, saying "Oh my God, he loves to argue. He's going to be an attorney one day." I didn't even understand what that meant. But I think the first tangible moment in my life where I thought I wanted to be an attorney was in seventh grade, and when I took a civics class, and I just happened to be introduced to what even that was, what an attorney did, and just kind of learn about the government in general. That was my first experience with that. That told me law or government may be something that I want to explore more, or just social sciences in general. Um, and I'm glad I had that experience in middle school because, like I said, I went to a magnet school for high school, and so I went into the legal and criminal justice magnet in Puerto Rico Senior High. And so that really, started to confirm like, okay, law is what I want to do, criminal justice, government, like, something in that area is what I really want to do. And I was around individuals who also had similar aspirations, at least, some individuals to this day who I'm still close with, that some of them are in law school or pursuing law. And so that was kind of the more tangible time in my life where I started to really think about law school. And then by the time I was finishing high school and, had really done some exposure into criminal justice stuff, I knew that that was what I wanted to go into. And so I applied to law school with that, undergrad with that intention. And so I took I guess the standard poli-sci, to law school route. Doesn't really, I don't know if they do now, but at the time didn't have like a pre-law track. And so, which I don't think is a problem. I actually don't think a pre-law track is very necessary based on, like what you do in law school. So I don't think that's important really. But I did take classes and stuff that kind of were suggesting law school and, a lot of reading and writing in that sense. But yeah, ever since that time, I think I wanted to become an attorney. And I never really strayed too far from that because I didn't have a lot of other backup options. I don't think if I didn't do law school, I'm not sure what I would have turned to. My other major involvement, was like I was also an art student undergrad, like I minored in art, and so but I never really saw that as a profession. I saw that more as a hobby and a passion, which I still do. But but yeah, it was always going to just be law. Even if that transitions into politics, government, public service, like anything like that, I think law would still be, the degree that I would want to have. I actually don't think I doubted that until law school, which is kind of crazy, but I don't think until my first year of law school is when I started to doubt that. I was at like this prestigious university and there was a lot of imposter syndrome that I felt. And especially after the first semester, being in like a classroom with so many like individuals who were like, whoa, like they, worked in Congress, they did this, like they've been off for 5 years, working, at a law firm, like have so much experience. Like I felt a lot of imposter syndrome. And so there were a lot of times I was like, like, am I actually really, is this for me? Like, am I good at this? Do I have the skills to even, keep up in this space? But then I think there were experiences, this past summer working at a firm, doing moot court my first year and doing well at regionals. I think those are experiences that affirmed that, okay, like this is what I want to do. And like, I have to kind of, battle that imposter syndrome and get past that. But that was a really significant time where I questioned it. I don't think I ever significantly questioned law as a path for me beyond that. I think aside from that moment in my 1L year, I didn't really question it too much. To answer your second question, if I remember correctly, like the extracurriculars, that's mainly what actually pushed me, I think, from an undergrad perspective to law school. I did mock trial. I helped reinstate the organization my sophomore year, competed, was president my junior year, and then competed again my junior year, and then coached the team senior year. So that was an involvement that I really stayed throughout my undergrad experience. And then I did Inspire You Academy, which is a mentorship program that works very closely with the Hammond program. And that program just taught me a lot about being an advocate for communities. And so those two experiences combined together told me that like, okay, now I know that I'm interested in law in a general sense, but why am I passionate about it? Mock trial, Inspire You answer that question and pushed me towards law school. So more than class and more than anything, those two things definitely pushed me towards law school.
Goddard, talk a little bit about your summers. I'm thinking of one summer in particular, but kind of go through your summers after freshman year, sophomore, and junior, and maybe how some of those experiences helped shape you and form your goals.
Yeah, I think my summer experiences are the reason why I went straight through to law school rather than taking time off, because I think it's like 70 to 80% of people take time off before going to law school, which I think there's a lot of merit in that. But because of my summer experiences, I didn't think it was necessary for me to take a year off. I did a political campaign internship, and I think actually you helped me get that internship, if I'm not mistaken, but that was with the former president of UM, Donna Shalala. And so I worked on her congressional campaign my summer after my freshman year. I worked at like a boutique litigation firm the summer after sophomore year. And then COVID hit junior year, but that summer I studied for the LSAT, did LSAT prep. And then I did the summer legal academy at UM's School of Law, which was, I think, the first year they had done that program. And so I did that program, which was really cool because that was the first time I actually got an idea of what law school would actually be like. And even to this day, I think back on it, and it was actually a really accurate depiction of what law school was like. So that program was really great. And I think it was only like 3 or 4 weeks, so it was pretty short, but very helpful in that sense. And so that's what I did my summer before senior year. And then my summer, I mean, I already got into law school by that time, but my summer going into law school, I did the SEO fellowship program, that was like a life-changing program. That was really great, and I'm happy to talk more about that. But yeah, so that's what I did those 4 summers. So a lot of stuff, if not only law related, but at least law adjacent. And so they gave me experiences that I think enabled me to still go to law school straight through and like feel like I was at least somewhat ready.
Yeah, yeah. And we don't have to get into it, but I do remember that not all those experiences were like amazingly positive experiences. Some of them were not so great. And that was also illuminating for you as you navigated things, which I think is an important lesson for students to remember. Just because something doesn't work out exactly like you wish, there's still value to glean from those experiences.
Hmm.
Speaking of sort of practical advice, I do want to ask you about your LSAT prep. You know, students who aspire to law school know that the LSAT is so instrumental in what kind of decisions they'll have in terms of their applications and admissions options. So tell us how you prepared to take the LSAT.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess one of the upsides of COVID back at that time was that I was stuck at home with a lot of time. And so I studied for the LSAT starting in like probably like April, May, and I took it in June. And I only took it one time, but I just self-studied. I think there's a lot of expensive LSAT prep, and I just did not think I had the means to do that, and nor did I want to spend the money on that. And so which is a whole nother problem about test prep, but so I just self-studied. I used Khan Academy for a lot of practice exams. I bought a test prep book that someone had recommended. Frankie recommended actually. I remember we all had the conversation.
The
Yeah.
Mike Kim book?
Yep, the Mike Kim book. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so I did, I think it's called the LSAT Trainer. And
Hmm.
so I used that book, really, really great. I thought that book was phenomenal. And so I used that to study, and basically just those two things, just the LSAT Trainer book, Khan Academy practice exams. I think there might have been one other thing. Like I think I had some other like resources that I found online or like friends had sent me, and I kind of just like loosely studied with that stuff as well. But yeah, I just basically all of May studied, all of June until the exam I studied. It went remote, like I think at the last minute, so I got like an extra week to study, I think. And yeah, I just that was like really all I did during that time was wake up, study, and then go to sleep. And I was at home, so there wasn't much else to do. And I started studying a little bit throughout the semester, but not like seriously. But yeah, I took the LSAT. That was that was kind of the route that I took with it. I know a lot of people do like practice, just like courses and stuff like that. And I think I would have done that had I not been okay with not had I not been like happy with my score the first time around. But thankfully I was happy with my score, so I kind of just started researching law schools and applying for law schools in the months coming after that.
So how many, if you had to guess, once you really kind of hit your focus on LSAT prep, how many hours a week would you say you spent studying?
I don't want to say that it was like strictly a 9 to 5 because that feels like a lot of time, but there was really nothing else going on at the time, so I think I mainly did just study. So I would say probably somewhere around 30 hours a week. And it wasn't, I mean, there were times where I would like lose focus and stuff, but I don't think I would really study on the weekends either. And the exam approached, like I was taking exams like every day or like every other day, and that's like 4 hours right there.
Wow.
And so it was probably a lot of time. Like I would say somewhere between 20 and 30 hours a week. I truly was treating it like a 9 to 5. And I think even looking back, it didn't feel that way because there was just really nothing going on in the world at the time. In terms of like being stuck at home, there was a lot going on in the world. But yeah, I mean, so it just everything was shut down, and so I just had a lot of time to study, and I think that just worked to my benefit. Whereas if you had to balance like class with it, work with it, which a lot of people do when they're studying for the LSAT, because it usually comes at a time when like you're working still, you're in school still, it would be harder to spend that time for it. But thankfully I had that time, and so I really did just wake up in the morning, eat breakfast, study, and then just finish for the day. And so it probably was somewhere around 20 to 30, especially closer to the time that I took the exam.
Okay. Okay. I want to keep it moving because I do try to keep these reasonably short so that they're watchable for our students. So let's jump right ahead to your first year. What would you say surprised you the most about law school, and how do you compare that transition to maybe the transition you had from high school to college?
I'll answer the second question first. I think the transition from high school to college was a lot more doable because one, I was in the same city, and so there was a sense of like, okay, if I'm having a crisis, I could go home, or like I'm not in totally unfamiliar area, even though I did say earlier, like it did feel like going away to college because I did live on campus, and that had a lot of its own adjustments. But I think the transition from high school to undergrad wasn't that hard in terms of like academics or like managing time or scheduling, just because like I had a really tough high school academic experience. And so I was ready for an even more rigorous experience. And UM provided that. But I think I had the setup to kind of like still do well in that environment. And more of the adjustments, I think, from high school to undergrad were like, living in a dorm now, or, not being living at home, having all that freedom and everything. And so those were a lot of the transition stuff that was kind of difficult. But for law school, even though I went straight through, I think there was a lot of like I was battling burnout a lot because I went straight through from undergrad and I did the SEO program throughout the entire summer. And so I literally graduated, started SEO the next day, SEO finished, and I moved to New York a week after. And so like there was just not a lot of time to like take a break, really appreciate like wow, like I'm a first gen like college grad student, like I'm going to law school. Like I couldn't have time to process that because I had to just go to law school. And so that was a tough transition in that sense. I moved to a new city. That was obviously a huge transition. That was the first time in my life I'd ever lived anywhere outside of Miami, like full time, like fully lived somewhere else. I'd only been to New York once before that, I think, maybe twice. And so that was a big transition on its own. But most people have that experience, I guess, in undergrad. So I guess I won't talk about that part too much. But the academic transition was very difficult because there was no more like, oh, like I have an exam, I'll study like starting like the week before, or like a days before, or whatever. There was no more of that. Like I was studying the whole semester, and that was just the norm. Like you studied, the whole semester in some type of way, and you really started studying, halfway through the semester, and then you really, really started studying, like during finals period, which is like a 2 week period. And so the academic experience was a lot. You're reading and writing a lot, reading a lot. I can't emphasize that enough. And you're in a classroom where it's a lot more intense. There's not kind of like a haha, like we're all just chilling, let's go like grab a drink after. Like it's a lot more like, answer your questions. Like you have your cases that you have to be ready to get cold called for. And I don't mean that to say like law school is like scary. Like I don't mean to say like it was like daunting, but it's just way more intense. And there's also
Right.
like a sense of like professionalism that's also involved. Like at
Mhm.
UM, and I told this to my friends, and they were like, "What? Like that was your experience?" And I had to remind them I went to school in Miami, but like I was like, I would go to school in like flip flops and slides all the time. Like I'd be in shorts. Like I was just it was our campus looks like a resort. Like that was just a different vibe. Here, like campus is beautiful, yes, but like people come to school and like button up shirts, like slacks, like, and not everybody does. I don't. I think that's like too much, but I mean, some people do. And, so once again, it's like a different vibe in the classroom. And, there's a lot more going on. A lot of the obstacles that I think, are put in place to like for students, for who are first gen, or minority students, I think those are really like not exemplified, like they're really pronounced in law school. Like those obstacles are not like, oh, okay, like I get it. Like, I'm a black first gen student in this class, like, but I can navigate that space. Like now it's like, whoa, like we're reading cases that like I may find to be like really like disruptive and really disturbing, but like a colleague may not have that experience. And then that could be a difference maker in like our exams and stuff. And so a lot of those things were exacerbated and like not well addressed sometimes. So I think that made the transition a little bit difficult. I will say though, like with Columbia specifically, they do a really good job of like fostering a community with like the different affinity groups, like the Latinx students, the Black students, like those groups do a lot. And the respective groups for all the different affinity groups, they do a lot to really make those communities feel welcome on campus, which I appreciated and I really leaned on in my time and my 1 year, and I still do. And so that was something that made my experience and transition a lot better. That thankfully I was able to find those groups early on because, like, once again, it was really early, and so I wouldn't if it wasn't something that I kind of just found out about early on in the law school process, I wouldn't have really known because like I'm first gen, and so I wouldn't have had anybody really telling me like, hey, like do this, at this point in the
Mhm.
semester, do this, now it's time to apply to jobs. And the affinity groups in the community were really important for that because they were the ones saying like, hey, this is what we did last year, like this is what you could do now, like we'll help you in this sense and like we'll do that for you. And so that was a lot of bridging the gap, similar to how OAE bridges the gap for us, in undergrad. That was what I found with the affinity groups here in law school. So that was really nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how about the future? If I remember correctly, you used to have political ambitions. Do you still? And if so, what do those look like? And if not, what are you thinking about now?
Yeah, I think, I feel like I've kind of gone back and forth with the whole political ambition stuff. I think at some point in my life I'd be open to it down the line. I think see it immediately. I see it more as something that once I've been practicing law for a while, if an opportunity arises or I feel really compelled about something, then I would consider that. Because I mean, I don't want to completely like I did public admin and political science for 4 years in undergrad. Like I don't want to completely toss it to the side. And so I do want to do that at some point in my life, and I think it'll be quite easy to a JD to a political career or something is a very common jump. But I do think right after law school, I mean, I was working at a firm in Miami this past summer and my SEO summer. And so this coming summer, I'll be working at a firm in New York. And so I'm excited to see that experience and see what the New York market is like and see what that experience is like compared to Miami. And based off of that, I'll see where I end up after law school. So I'll have to decide that at the end of next summer. But I'm excited. I think I definitely want to practice litigation, do corporate litigation for some time after law school and really get that experience, get some training as a litigator, because that's what I'm really passionate about, being able to do trial advocacy work, being able to really just advocate on behalf of someone who's bringing you a case. And so really getting a lot of exposure to that and hopefully working in corporate litigation gives me a lot of opportunities to get that kind of training. So I'm excited, and I think that'll be a really great opportunity after law school. And like I said, after next summer, I'll know specifically where that'll be. But beyond that, I think after working in corporate litigation for however long that may be, I probably would want to transition into something just working more directly with like a social justice cause that I'm passionate about, and whether that be through politics or some other form, I'd be open to that. Or even working as in-house somewhere, specifically for one of those causes or something. I think I'd definitely be open to. But these next years of law school are definitely where I'm going to be able to explore that, doing clinics, externships, more hands-on, like experiential learning. And so hopefully I'll have a better answer for that next year. But that's generally what I see my path as right now.
Good, cool. How about advice for those who aspire to go to law school or maybe even go to a top 14 law school? What few things would you say you would really recommend that they prioritize or focus on?
Yeah, I think, like I said earlier, I don't think you have to be pre-law to go to law school, but I do think it's such a challenging experience. And I don't say that to like in a scary way, but it is a challenge. And so you really have to be committed to like wanting to practice law and wanting to be in the legal field. And I think like the first time I was like really, really confronted with that is when I had to write my personal statement for law school. And it's like, okay, like, why do you want to go to law school? And that seems like a very simple question to like to answer, but it's not. I mean, that's a heavy question. Like, why do you want to go on this academic like endeavor? And like, why do you want to do this? And you have to have a really good response. And I think that takes a lot of time to reflect. Like I said, I took the LSAT in June and I didn't write my personal statement till September, October, like around that time. And so that time in between wasn't like I just like ignored it. Like it was really a lot of thinking, like, why do I want to do this? I would write out ideas. There was like a grad school essay book that I consulted, and I would like do some practice exercises there and like think about like what do I want to write about? What do I want to do? So I think if you're considering law school, you don't have to answer it like at this. If you're a freshman in like undergrad, you don't have to have an answer to that question. But if you are a senior or a junior and you want to go straight through, or like you're thinking about that long term, like I think it's just something to really start thinking about, like what have I done so far, and what am I going to do before law school that really sets me up to be like, okay, like this is really what I want to do. Like law school is what I'm committed to. That's my passion, and that's where I see my future. Because it's also a lot of money. Like you don't want to go into all this debt and then it's like, well, am I actually interested in law, or do I prefer business, or do I prefer politics, or do I prefer, something in STEM? Like it could be anything, and that's great. But if you do want to do law school, like really try to find like that commitment and why you want to do it. And then I think beyond that, like really just start taking steps towards setting yourself up towards that. Like I could give advice about like LSAT and like essay stuff and everything, but that's like way more, you know, like structural. Like you'll there's resources for all those things, and like I'd be happy to follow up on that stuff. But I think more in terms of like, I guess like substantive advice, like what internships have you done? What classes have you taken? Like, have you done a lot of classes that do like research and writing? Like those are skills that you'll need. And so if you do a lot of classes in that, like that's great. Those skills will actually come into play. If you did an internship at a law firm or something in anything related to the legal field, like that comes into play. If you do want to take a gap year, which is totally valid, like I would have taken a gap year if my circumstances were different. So if you do take a gap year, like what are you doing with that time? Are you working at a law firm? Are you doing something that's like related to law? Or something that's going to like explore a passion that you could tie into law, like anything like that. But I think it's just about being intentional, like with what you do. Like I was very intentional because I knew that I wanted to go to law school. It was very intentional with what I did in undergrad, that it showed that like this is clearly like what I want to do. Like my resume didn't read as like, well, maybe he wants to do this. Like it read like law school. Like that's what I want to do. Like I'm very clear about that. And then it was up to me to like formalize that into words. But the tangible steps you could take now are like, what classes am I taking? Like what internships? Like all those things are like way more tangible that you have control over. So that's kind of the advice I would give from like more of like what you could do now or like what you could do long term to set yourself up for that and like really build like, you know, your personal resume of like, this is why I'm a good candidate for law school, and like specifically you're a law school. And so yeah, and I think that's general, like law school, not just specifically for like a prestigious university, like any of them. Like I would say is a general advice for how you know you could start setting yourself up for success for law school.
Goddard, that's great. Thank you so much. I will tell you that I refer to you often in my conversations with current students, and many times it's to tell them about, I once had a student who was dead set on law school, but always made sure to take an art class every semester because they just enjoyed it. I always admired that you made room for that outlet and kept that as part of your life. But thanks so much for your time today and your wisdom and reflection. It's as fun as always to chat with you. And thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Chris. This was really, really great. And if, you know, people ever need advice or anything, as you know, I'm always here and always happy to give advice to, especially fellow Hammonds, you know, love the program, so always happy to give back. But yeah, thank you for having me. And I'll see you at homecoming. I'm coming home for homecoming.
Oh,
so
good.
I will see you at homecoming.
Definitely hit me up. Let's get together. And good luck the rest of the way this year and in your third year. I'll wish you that luck if you wish me luck in ending this Instagram Live broadcast. Hopefully I remember how to do that.
I could wish you luck, but I unfortunately would not be much help though. So good luck figuring it out. But I see an X, and that's the best that I could do in terms of.
It's a good guess. It's a good guess. We're going to start there and see what happens.
Okay.
Thanks so much,
good.
Goddard.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. You too. Nice speaking with you.
All right. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.